Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for Legal Aid Queensland's webinar today. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge and respect the Turrbal and Yugara people as the First Nations custodians of the land where our Brisbane office stands today. We'd like to pay our respects to elders, laws, customs and creation spirits and recognise that these lands have always been places of ceremony and of teaching, of research and of learning. We recognise the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play in our community and improving our legal system. So we'd like to welcome you to our September webinar, How the Family Advocacy and Support Service Can Help Your Clients. Sitting next to me today, I have Fiona Davis. Fiona is an acting principal lawyer in the Family Law Services Division at Legal Aid Queensland, and Isabel Hodgkin is a domestic violence prevention worker at Legal Aid Queensland. I'm going to run through a few housekeeping slides and then I'll pass you over for the presentation. Just a reminder that this webinar is for legal education purposes only for community health and education workers, and it is being recorded today and will be published on our YouTube channel. All right, we also have further community legal education resources on our website. The link is in the handout slides today if you would like to download those in the toolbar under the handouts section. If you are having any technical issues, GoToWebinar is the platform that we use and there's a link for technical support there. Otherwise, you can always wait for the recording as well. All right, we're welcoming questions today. We ask that they are not specific legal questions about clients, but general questions that can benefit everybody in the room today. You're welcome to type those into the questions box in the toolbar on the side there at any time, and we will be answering questions after the presentation at the end. We're going to jump into a poll. It's optional if you wish to answer or not, it's your choice. Are you of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander origin? This is only for our own records today. We have a few questions that will help us understand who we have on the other side of the screen, who our audience is. All right, I'm going to close those off. Share the results. Thank you for those who answered that question. We're also interested to know what region you work in. These questions just help guide the presentation because we can't see you today, but we can have a basic understanding of where you're working. We've got a lot of people working in Southeast Queensland, Far North Queensland and regional Queensland. I can see a number of you are from outside of Queensland. I'd just like to say that we are based in Queensland and it is intended for people who are working within Queensland, but we do have legal aid offices around Australia. So we would just encourage you to check information with your local legal aid office. I'll share those results in case you're interested. We have half of the audience from Southeast Queensland and the remainder from Far North Queensland and regional Queensland and outside of Queensland. Okay, the last question before I hand you over to your presenter. This question is, what is your role? Are you a support worker, community worker, health worker or education worker? Again, it just helps us guide the presentation today so that we can get a little bit of an understanding of who our audience is. %50 of the audience so far have selected others, so possibly financial counsellors, or I know we do have a couple of solicitors from community centres and the private sector. Fiona's just going to speak on a little bit about that in a moment. We've got support workers and community workers and health workers today. We don't have any education workers logged in today. I believe we have a lot of domestic violence workers and family support workers today as well. All right, I'm going to pass you on to Fiona. She'll be able to go through the outline of the webinar today and just speak a little bit about information for the lawyers who are logged in today. So welcome,
Excellent.
Fiona.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for your participation in this session today. As mentioned, my name is Fiona and I'm a lawyer in the family law teams at Legal Aid Queensland. I'm based in Brisbane. Before I start today, I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands which all of us meet on today, and I'd like to acknowledge elders both past, present and emerging. In terms of what we're going to speak about today, I've got about 40 minutes to talk to you about the family advocacy and support services. Then at the conclusion of the presentation, I'll have the opportunity to field some questions from you all today relevant to the service. Certainly, I noticed from the polls and from the list of participants today that there are some solicitors present. This particular presentation today is focused towards legal information for community service providers. So if the solicitors out there do have any questions from a more legal nature today, I'd still encourage you to ask those questions, because it might be a further opportunity for us to formulate some legal specific CLE in relation to FASS related matters in the future. So I would be encouraging you to send any of those types of questions in. So today we're just going to talk about the background of the Family Advocacy and Support Service. It has been around for a little while now. Some of you may be aware of the service and have had clients that have previously used the service. There has been some recent changes to the service and how that service is being delivered, so we will be covering that today. We'll be talking about how FASS can help your clients, especially the clients that have been impacted by family violence. I'll be talking about the team and what members of the team do today. How do your clients access our service? And especially how people around the state can access the service. We have a very large state, so we'll be giving you some guidance about your particular region and area and how you can best support your clients with a referral. We will talk about the changes to the FASS service and some of the supports and scaffolding the FASS service can provide some of your clients. And I have Isabel here with me today, who's one of our domestic violence prevention workers, who is going to speak to those supports that can be provided. So the Family Advocacy and Support Service, what is it? What does it entail? So some of you may have been around back to 2017, 2016, where there was a National Legal Aid report identifying what support victims of family violence really needed. And so from that, specialist family violence and family law legal assistance, it was determined could be provided to families affected by violence, but especially those that cannot afford legal representation. And certainly it was noted through that report that there were some gaps that definitely needed to be filled. So the whole purpose was really to provide legal assistance to both victims and also the perpetrators of domestic violence, as that experience demonstrate that such a model promotes victim safety and perpetrator accountability as well. So it's not a service that just looks at victims. sometimes perpetrators with the right guidance and the right advice we can make a difference to the experience of victims going through the system. We do have some national guidelines for the FASS service. So firstly, we provide assistance to families affected by family violence, as I said, both victim and perpetrator. We work cooperatively with a number of stakeholders to provide this service. So firstly, we have a good relationship and a cooperative relationship with the family courts and court staff to support safety and service of the users and the children impacted by violence. And again, we work cooperatively with a number of stakeholders to support safe, effective and efficient resolution of matters. We have a very close, relationship with particularly domestic violence services. So for those of you who have heard of our service before, yes, back in 2017, pre-COVID, this is where the service commenced with lawyers and social support workers we had in Brisbane, Townsville and Cairns. I remember back then, 2017, I was still with Legal Aid at that particular point, and it was a very exciting initiative. Then in 2019, the services expanded to include men's support workers, as it was identified there may have been some gaps in that service delivery, and they were introduced to the model. So that was to complement the existing support services in FASS, which we had the support workers involved at that stage as well. Now, back in 2022, well, now in 2022, post-COVID, the service is expanding. So we're looking to cover all registries and all circuit locations, and the addition of further supports in relation to mental health as part of the model as well. So, criteria to access FASS. What you need to consider with your clients if you're presented with a client with need. Firstly, there has to be an element of family violence involved with the matter. So, and also one way of accessing FASS is there are very urgent legal issues that may arise. So I'll go into what a very urgent legal issue is in a moment. Or there is family violence involved in the matter and the client needs to be in court that day. Now, court post-COVID is a lot different to what it was pre-COVID, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware. The older way of being on site for court isn't exactly the way the courts are operating today, and there's also an emphasis on electronic delivery of those services as well. So we're able to help people that are both attending in person in court in that day, or if they are appearing in electronic court events as well. All right, so examples of what might constitute a very urgent legal issue for a client is maybe there's a situation where your client's seeking your assistance, where a child has been potentially removed from the primary caregiver's care, and that may have some information regarding there are further risks to the children as a result of that. Further risks may be that it's a very, very young child, an infant child. That child may be breastfed. There's a history of domestic violence issues that might enhance risks, such as substance abuse issues or situations that the child hasn't normally spent time with that parent. And I'll go through some specific examples throughout the presentation today. You may come across clients that has had a child removed where there might be an imminent departure of that child from Australia. For instance, it may be a situation where the passports for the child have gone missing, that the parent has left their job, that they've drained the bank accounts of money, and there may be some threats to remove the child from the jurisdiction, potentially to countries that may not have reciprocal arrangements in place, where it would be, we can make applications to have that child returned. So that is a matter that comes up quite frequently. There's also, it's not just related to parenting related matters. There may be situations where someone may need to preserve an interest in property. A family may have recently separated. For whatever reason that house may be in the other party's name. They've noticed all of a sudden that there's a for sale sign in front of the house, and they're yet to address those financial issues in the relationship. We're able to give advice and support and potentially representation around those issues as well.
Okay.
I think we've got a poll.
We do. I'm going to jump in here and launch our poll. We're wondering what you think about this question. A client has no access to money and a child under 2. The community support worker thinks their client needs urgent support and plans to go through the urgent legal issue process. We're wondering, do you agree with this process? Yes, no, or maybe? So I'll just reiterate, they have no access to money and a child under 2 may or may not be breastfed. Should they go through the urgent legal issue process? We've got a few responses still coming through. Looks like we have maybe a couple of answers swapping a little, so I'll just give you another moment on this.
It's not an exam at the end.
No, it's not. Okay, I'll share the results with you. Most of you, yes, agree that this process would be right to go through the urgent legal process. Some of you said no, and some of you said maybe, very situation dependent. I'm going to hand over to Fiona to just talk a little bit about the answers there.
So certainly financial issues following separation can be a very difficult, a very relevant issue for someone that has left a relationship. They may have issues with homelessness, how they're going to meet rent payments. So there's by contacting us for advice and support around those issues, sometimes we can access some support, social work support around those issues. So if you are faced with a client with those types of issues, I would encourage you to refer them to us so we can obtain further information from them about what their needs are, and appropriately advise them on courses of action that might assist in those circumstances. Yes. Okay, so again, just clarifying again, so the clients with matters in court that day, some of you and the lawyers that are around in the presentation today would know that Legal Aid has a family law duty lawyer service over at the Federal Circuit and Family Court. But we also now have a support worker, mental health worker, now available at courts to clients, and we work in tandem together, of course, with your client's consent, that we can work together to appropriately address those legal needs and all those psychosocial needs that a client may have at that particular time. So if you think of it, it's like an FLDL service on steroids, okay? So it's not just advice. We can give that extra assistance. It may include some drafting of some documents sometimes. It may be that we appear in court and advocate for them as well. so it's not just advice. So they're for the people that have got court matters on that day. But we also get matters where they're not in court, but still need that urgent legal assistance. And that's where action needs to be taken immediately or within 72 hours. So again, the examples that I gave before, urgent recovery issues, where there are risk issues to the client, or urgent airport watch list matters. And look, if in doubt, err on the side of caution and refer the client anyway, because we go through a very comprehensive triage process with the client, and we get that urgent advice to that client. It may not be an urgent application right away for that assistance, but it might need that we can put some scaffolding around their particular needs that they have, maybe from a social work front at that point, looking at safety for the client sometimes, which is paramount, and then working with the client about how we can address those other legal needs as well. So we also can fill that gap. Sometimes there is a little bit of a delay in processing applications for legal aid. Sometimes there are delays because we need further information from the client or further eligibility information regarding the client. So sometimes there are those delays. We can also support the people through that process as well. All right. So for FASS, there is no formal means or merit test, unlike if you're applying for a grant of legal aid. But we do have some parameters. So we can give face-to-face services when a client does attend at court, and there are no bookings associated with that. We can, at I think it's level 1 of the court, we have an intake officer that's there every day. So if you do have a client that is coming to court that day and they do need that face-to-face service, they would attend at the intake officer, and they will go through their process of intake. Sometimes we're in this brave new world of electronic court delivery that a lot of clients may be facing, that they've got their first court appearance is through a judicial registrar via Microsoft Teams or a phone call. We do have the ability 3 days out from that to provide some advice and assistance as well. So we would encourage those clients as well to engage with us, so we can provide them with that support prior to the court day. We can give legal and support services to both parties. So we have some conflict partners, and if there's anybody from Caxton or other CLCs that support us, hello to you today, and we really value your support in helping us provide this service. Again, if we've already mentioned that perpetrators can also get legal assistance as well. Again, I would have addressed that was identified in the 2016 National Legal Aid Report. Again, with a perpetrator getting the right guidance, advices, referral, sometimes it leads to a better outcome for the victim. So that's why, in part, we have a men's support worker as a part of the model as well. Yep. All right, so how do we assess the family violence? Certainly we have, in our duty lawyer forms, we have intake that we do go through, and our support officers that go through the intake have a series of questions that they do ask the client to identify violence and risk issues. Those questions may include asking them if they are worried about their physical safety whilst they're at court. By flagging if they do say yes, we're able to then organise some safety planning around their court participation. So that's one of the first questions that we would ask. We also ask if they're currently fearful of the other person or any other parties that may be involved in their case. We also ask if that somebody, a party, has ever threatened to kill or harm them or the children. If anyone involved in the case has ever physically harmed or sexually abused the children. We also screen for current domestic violence orders as well and obtain information about what party they are, whether they're the aggrieved or respondent or a named person in a protection order. We also ask, which is really important, about compliance with those domestic violence orders as well, and whether there's been any breaches of that order. We also look for coercive and controlling type of behaviour as well by a party to the matter. We screen regarding making own decisions about the case and if they feel comfortable in having any conversations or negotiations with that other party, or whether or not they feel comfortable in speaking in the presence of the other party as well. We also ask questions regarding if there's been any physical, emotional, or psychological harm in the relationship as well that we need to take into account through our assessment process. We also ask, in the situations where there isn't a domestic violence order in place, are they interested in obtaining further information about how they can do that? At Legal Aid, we also have a specialist family violence team that can help with those types of applications as well. Okay, it takes a village to provide this service, I think. So certainly we have a lot of staff involved in this process. As already mentioned, we have an intake officer. Again, we have that in person at the court, but we also have people in the office behind the scenes that are looking after phones and monitoring our FASS inbox for those referrals as well. We have lawyers that are rostered on every day for FASS matters as well. They are family lawyers and are experienced in this type of service delivery. We also have our social support workers, which we couldn't do without. They do a fantastic job in help building scaffolding and supports around our clients, which is, I think, is a really important part of success going through the system, and mental health workers as well. But I'll let Isabel talk a little bit more about those issues too. All right, so what do we do? All the lawyers out there, you know what you need to be doing. But for those that are not lawyers, of course, we provide confidential legal advice about the particular matters. We do disclose to our clients how their information is stored and used that they give to us, and we do assure them about the confidentiality aspects of their interaction with us when we're giving legal advice. Through that process, we also go through, we look at the assessment and the intake forms from our litigation support people that do intake. We're asking certain questions around risk and look for, I guess, opportunities that in the short term we might be able to resolve matters. So sometimes if it's safe to do so, it may be a situation where we give some minor assistance to that client by writing a letter to the other party, seeking the return of the child or asking them to engage in a process with us so we can try and resolve these matters without litigation. Sometimes those letters can result in the return of the child. I know we've only, in the past few weeks, we've had some where we've got to a stage with drafting an urgent application to the court. We've already sent a return of letter child to the other party, sorry. And then all of a sudden over the weekend, the child returns to the primary caregiver's care. So in those situations, we don't just leave it there. Obviously, there's potential for some ongoing legal issues and some risk issues there. So we would help them potentially, if need be, get a grant of legal aid to help them further with those issues, or look for if we're unable to assist them for whatever reason, we would look for opportunities for warm referrals to have someone assist as well. So we don't just leave it there at the child's return. We can offer an ongoing service if it's appropriate for us to do so. Again, we get a lot of people coming in to court, especially it's the first return date. They may have just been served with some documents and they're totally overwhelmed with what they need to do. How do I, access information about what's happening with my matter? How do I engage in Microsoft Teams? I've never used Microsoft Teams before. How do we go through that process? And so we're able to sometimes say, look, would you feel more comfortable if you had some assistance with that? So we're able to offer that assistance as well. Sometimes we're even getting referrals from the court that, it's a self-represented party has filed some documents, but they're incomplete, and we note that family violence is a factor here. We're referring this client to you for some further support and advice around that. We're able to assist those clients too. More importantly, navigating the client through a legal aid application process. I know our legal aid application forms are not that small, so certainly we may also be encountered with people with literacy issues as well, so we can guide them through that legal aid application process as well. And again, I'm banging, yes, we collaborate with our support workers as well that are integral to that client's journey as well through the process. Now I'm going to hand over to Isabel.
Yes, thanks, Fiona. So my role as a social support worker for FASS is quite broad. So we're doing a lot of risk assessments, safety planning, so including for court appearances, but this can be safety planning at home as well. We do assessment of social support needs. We provide crisis counselling on the day of attending court, as well as general emotional support. It can be very overwhelming and confusing coming to courts. We try and make that process a bit easier for clients. We provide information and advocacy to access support needs with other organisations. So this might include housing or crisis housing, Centrelink, victim support, and police for domestic violence orders and charges. We provide assistance to transition between the Commonwealth and state courts, as this can be quite confusing for clients. We also provide referrals to parenting and behaviour change programs. And we provide practical assistance for clients with the process. So like Fiona was talking about before, we can help with legal aid applications. We can also help with providing information around applying for a domestic violence order or varying an existing domestic violence order. And we work collaboratively with lawyers and with the mental health workers as well. So I'll just speak a bit about the mental health support workers. So as Fiona said at the start of today's webinar, this is quite new. This has just been introduced in 2022. But the mental health support worker, their role is mainly around assessment of clients' needs and doing risk assessments. They engage in suicide prevention, crisis support and safety planning. They provide information, non-legal advocacy and support for mental health services. So this can be before, during and after court. They provide advocacy and referral of service users for mental health service needs and the coordination for client to engage with services. And they work collaboratively with the lawyer and with the social support workers. So my role as a social support worker, it's mainly around domestic violence. And then we have the mental health support workers who can provide that more specific mental health support. It is important to note, so the mental health support workers, their assistance doesn't include referrals, which should more properly be made to, say, ambulance or police. They don't provide ongoing case management or clinical or forensic assessment reports.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we'll give at this point some examples of the types of matters where we have offered some assistance, and give some examples where it may be a FASS related matter or not a FASS related matter. But as I previously mentioned, when in doubt, contact us as well, and we can go through that screening and assessment process with the client to help assess that level of risk and what is the most appropriate course of action. So doing a bit of a poll through all the team, they've come up with some examples of FASS. One may be here where a father broke into the mother's home in the middle of the night, assaulted her, took the 12-month-old child who really didn't have a relationship with the father, and sought recovery and some parenting orders. Again, another example about the airport watch list, where a father has discovered the mother was intending to leave Australia with the child within 48 hours. The mother had passports, father was subject to a domestic violence order. We would go through with the client and flesh out a little bit more detail in those circumstances, what has transpired. So for a watch list, as I said, who's got passports, is, you know, what kind of countries that they're heading to, all of that information we would flesh out. So if in doubt, I would say refer. Because if it's not particularly a FASS, it might be an opportunity for family law duty lawyer services, or just a family law advice, or potentially an application for legal aid. So, okay, so if you look at this and you take these scenarios on face value without digging a bit more, so it might be the mother didn't return children after half school holidays with them and the children are missing school. There may be another reason for that, that, you know, might be not as sinister as what that comes across. So part of our process would be digging deeper to find out what those circumstances might be, and getting a little bit of an idea of the family dynamic in that matter. Situations where the father didn't return a 3-year-old child after a long weekend, saying the mother she will never see the child again. So we would then go through really a lot of information about the family dynamic, the history. We would address issues concerning family violence, whether they're any previous domestic violence orders, compliance with those orders, any parenting orders in the past, compliance issues with those matters as well. So we would have a look at those issues. It may not end up being a FASS case, but it might say that we needed some ongoing case management in some way. So again, mother has left the father, taken the children after a severe domestic violence relationship, and wants an urgent order that they can live with her, and the father has no time. So certainly this particular client will need some legal advice about parenting and associated matters. Again, it might be a situation where once we dig deep that we might need some DVPW support to look at what are those other issues impacting the client. Another situation is the child came to the father with bruises, so he's wanting to get an urgent order to have children to stay with him, so mother can't take them back. Again, we would workshop that, find out what, you know, potentially what those risk issues are, if any, and provide that parent with advice about how the court views these particular situations.
All right. Another poll. What is considered to be an urgent issue? Do you think it's an urgent issue when the person is leaving the country in 2 days or 48 hours? Do you consider it to be an urgent issue when a child is believed to be with someone who uses illegal drugs? Or when the client doesn't have family or friends to support them and no other financial support? Or is it possible that it's all of the above? If you're not sure and you think it could be a couple but not others, you can still tick all of the above, and Fiona will go through the answers shortly. We've still got some responses coming through, so we'll give it another 30 seconds. All right, we'll close it off there and share the results. Most of you suggested when a person is leaving the country in 2 days or 48 hours, that could be considered an urgent legal issue. Others believe an urgent legal issue could be when a child is believed to be with someone who uses illegal drugs. A couple have said if the client doesn't have financial support and no other friends or family who can help them with financial support either. And some of you have said all of the above, so I'll let Fiona talk to those answers.
Yes, I think fairly everyone's hit the nail on the head there. I think certainly, especially I guess if someone's leaving the country to a destination where there's no reciprocal arrangements for us to try and have that child return to our jurisdiction. So definitely that is something that we give priority to, and certainly where there are risk issues concerning a child being with someone, we will dig down again with the client in terms of what the histories are with the illicit substance abuse issues and address that accordingly. Okay, all right.
Sorry, we've just got a message coming through here. Someone's just mentioned they can't see the captioners or the Auslan interpreters. It's all working on our end, but it is being recorded. So if you are having issues with your technology, it should show up just fine in the recording. Right, pass you back to Fiona.
All right. So as again, one of the changes is that now it is a statewide service. So the Commonwealth Government has funded FASS to be available in permanent registries and circuit court locations in Queensland. Again, Legal Aid is the primary service provider for this service, but we are supported by a number of partner legal and social support agencies in Brisbane and both in our regions as well. So we have a hub model for service delivery. So with the Brisbane area, we look after Southport, Toowoomba and Maroochydore and up to the Bundaberg region. For those in central Queensland, Rockhampton also has a partnership with Mackay, and then we also have services in Townsville Registry and the Cairns Registry of the courts as well.
All right, another poll. And I'm going to just let everyone know that you likely won't get the live captioner or the interpreter on your screen while the poll is open. All right, this should be our last poll for the day. Do you believe that the FASS service operates out of the family law courts at Brisbane, Townsville and Cairns, Brisbane, Cairns and Mackay, or Brisbane, Toowoomba and Cairns? And there is only one right answer today, but it's not, don't take it too seriously. It's just a bit of fun and it just helps us understand your knowledge of where the FASS system operates out of. All right, I'll close those results off now and briefly share those on the screen. Most of you believe it's Brisbane, Townsville and Cairns. Fiona,
yes,
tell us
so
about
there we go. So of course, and so we do have, I guess they're our court and our area. Brisbane is the hub. Townsville and Cairns also has that support available as well. So
thanks, Fiona.
no worries. All right, so we move on. So where do we get our work from? So hopefully we're going to get a lot more work as a result of this webinar. So we do get our clients from, of course, the courts, the registry and the specialist domestic violence list, the EVIT list. We get those types of referrals through regularly already. And some of them have included, as I said before, situations where it might be a self-represented party filing some documents for court. They've identified in those documents that family violence is a factor, but they've forgotten the affidavit or something like that, that really is going to tell the story to the court about what's been happening. So we will get that referral and we allocate that advice to one of our FASS lawyers to investigate, contact the client, investigate further. Legal Aid Queensland front counters through the state will identify if there's any potential high-risk matters that come through. They will refer them to us. Our contact centre, our 1300 number, we constantly get calls through that way as well. And of course, our advice lawyers throughout the organisation, we've got a variety of different clinics. Our regional offices have advice clinics. We have family violence. Our area, they're doing advice clinics as well. So we have referrals from a number of internal sources as well. Again, the community legal centres out there, we love you. You offer us some support and you often send us clients. Keep that happening. Domestic violence services we work with very closely. They also send us those referrals as well as QPS as well. Okay, so how to refer them to us. Again, if the client has a court matter to that day and if they're required to be in court on site, and this is the big thing you've got to check these days because it's not always on site, they can come to level 1 to our intake service there, or up to 3 days before if they know it's an electronic and they're before a judicial registrar, we can give you that advice before that court appearance, up to 3 days before. For matters not in court, doesn't matter, as I said before. We look at that risk and urgency criteria, and being family violence, the urgent legal issue, they can come to us and we'll go through our assessment process that way. In terms of our contact, so for the Brisbane hub, so matters in the court that day, same process as accessing the family law duty lawyer service, and that can be by person or by telephone, and that's our number on the screen there. If it's in Brisbane and you're not in court, well, there's a couple of ways. Again, we have our call centre number there that's on the screen, and we've also got a FASS mailbox as well. And sometimes if you do have a client, it's helpful to give us as much information as possible so we can do the necessary conflict checks. So that might be the full name of both parties, their date of birth, address and contact details. All of that helps us through that process. And then we will go through our intake once we have that information. We would need to then contact you if we don't have complete information, so whatever you can send us, that would be helpful. For our regional area, hello to all of you outside of the southeast Queensland. Cairns have asked us to have referrals to that phone number and email address. Townsville and Rockhampton, both by telephone, and they've provided their direct numbers for those referrals there. Again, as much information as you can provide is helpful to us. So again, the parties' names, if the matter is in court, when's the next court date, and where that court matter may be, whether it's electronic or whether it's in person, is always helpful if the client actually knows that. Any details about the risk issues that your organisation may have done a risk assessment around that client, you may be able to assist in providing us some further supporting information about that. So if it might be a domestic violence order and the like, that information is helpful to us. And of course the contact details, and if it is safe to call If it's not safe to call, are there other ways that we may be able to contact that client so we can workshop around safety?
Yeah.
Oh, there is
You
one
think,
last poll.
there's another poll.
There is one last poll. I don't believe that we actually had this one loaded in our system, so we can just read to it. A health worker in Townsville noticed their client is very distressed about a family issue and needs information about applying for a DVO. Can the health worker help their client with a FASS referral? Yes, no, or maybe. It will be very situational dependent. What do you think, Fiona?
I might pop that to my colleague here while I finish having a little comment.
Yeah, well, in terms of social supports, we can absolutely help as the social support workers. So we could go through doing risk assessments, and also in terms of needing help applying for a domestic order application, we can provide that help too. So we often assist with applying for domestic violence orders or with varying existing domestic violence orders too. And we can also, the support workers, help with safety planning if that is wanted as well. So yeah, from a support worker point of view, we can definitely help.
I've got nothing to add there, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, some practical tips for your clients when referring. Again, if attending court in person, it's really not a place for kids. So certainly if there's really the need sometimes to sort of organise some childcare arrangements if you do need to attend. If that's going to be a problem for any of your clients, please give us a call for some legal advice prior to that. So we can give you some guidance around those types of issues. It might be a situation where an electronic appearance could be applied for if there's childcare responsibilities or something like that. And again, what helps us help your client is as much information as possible regarding any past orders or parenting plans that the client may have, any domestic violence orders, etc. That can help us quickly identify what those issues may be for the client. And again, there's our contact details, guys, our 1300 numbers there. And finally, any questions that you all may have as a result of that? And as I said to the legal practitioners out there, if there are legal related questions that you think you want to canvass today, it may not be appropriate with this audience today, but certainly shoot them through, because if we're able to look at a more legal specific CLE regarding this, that's something that we can start planning for in the future. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for attending today, and I hope that that will assist you with your clients moving forward.
Thank you, Fiona and Isabel. That was such a comprehensive presentation today, and I'm sure everyone in our audience really appreciate your time, and we really appreciate everybody logging in as well to listen to Fiona and Isabel today. And I can see that a few of you have already asked some questions. Some things our presenters may be able to answer or may not, so we're going to run through all of them in any case. Now, we've been informed that Queensland Health do not do any yearly screening. Is this still true?
Beyond my, I have not, I can't really comment on what screening that Queensland Health would do. I don't know from your point of view.
No, I'm not too familiar with Queensland Health, but definitely from our point of view, we're always doing a thorough risk assessment and doing screening. But
it's certainly a prompt for us to certainly have a look at that and see if there's any opportunities that might flow from that for sure. So
and we really encourage you to get in touch with Queensland Health as well to confirm with them. And just a reminder that if you do have a question that you don't feel is appropriate to ask, live today, you can always email us at webinars@legalaid.qld.gov.au. Okay, Fiona and Isabel, can you please tell one of the members of our audience what domestic and family violence perpetrator behaviour change program do you refer your clients to?
Wow. Well, you start and I'll just blog in on you because there's so many of them out there today, depending on where you are.
Absolutely. Depends on location. So I know that I'm pretty sure Brisbane Domestic Violence Service, BDVS, in the city have their own men's behaviour change program.
And south of the Beenleigh Court, there's the YFS, Men's Behavioural Change Program as well. And then depending whether you're in Cairns, there's other services in Townsville as well.
And I would say, if in doubt, there's Men's Line too. You could always check with Men's Line what the local services may be, or I think even just having a Google would show where local services would be as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, just a question about our means and merits test, and do we income test for the FASS system?
No, we don't income test for the FASS system, but if we identify there's an ongoing need for assistance and support, we will go through if there is a financial eligibility for ongoing legal casework, we would need to apply. So if we did the original application and that person may not meet our means test, certainly that person would have to source that legal support elsewhere, but we would take the client through the legal aid application process and the means and merit tests associated with that.
Thank you both. Now, we did have a question that came through before the webinar started. What are the suggestions around making contact with children when parental alienation is occurring?
Right, so certainly there's not a one-size-fits-all answer for that particular question, and it is a legal issue. So what I would encourage that service is to refer the client to us so we can unpack what those issues, obtain the history of that matter, so then we can provide them, I guess, with that advice on what the next best course of action would be for them. All right, so not a one-size-fits-all answer with that one, I'm afraid.
And if you want further guidance, you can always email us at webinars@legalaid.qld.gov.au. And we've got a question about the recording. Yes, it will be recorded, including the Auslan interpretation and the live captioning, and published on YouTube. Now, you advised you can offer ongoing legal service. If proceedings are ongoing, do you advise your client to submit a Legal Aid Queensland application?
Yes, definitely. So if we, at the end of the day, if the many files that come in with FASS, start off with FASS, and then we find out that that client is eligible for ongoing legal assistance, we can assess them with an application for aid and would encourage them to do so.
Thank you.
And a part of our best practice guidelines of dealing with victims of domestic violence is really to reduce as much handoff, so to reduce victim storytelling as well. So in those circumstances, if the merit test and means test, we would encourage them to
absolutely.
Now, we've got another question around family settlement, and can we assist with family settlement?
If you're talking about property settlement, maybe that question relates to property settlement. We can give legal advice around those issues. Sometimes there's some urgency around financial issues following separation. That could be things like spousal maintenance related issues, etc. We can give some legal advice around those types of issues.
Thank you. Now, we're almost out of time today. So if your question wasn't answered, I'd just encourage you to email us at webinars@legalaid.qld.gov.au. And I'd just like to thank our presenters, Fiona and Isabel, again, for such a comprehensive session today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.